We're here today with Amanda Masi, who is a head teacher at the Columbus Preschool and Gym, who has taken a special interest in educating parents about good nutritional habits for their kids. And I thought she would be an excellent woman to have here today to talk about different types of eating patterns that our kids might get into that we might want to steer them away from, that might not be so healthy, as well as what really good eating choices are. Mindful eating is something that I know she is big on. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what Amanda has to say on nutrition right now. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And can you tell us a little bit about what made you interested in telling parents more about nutrition for their kids?
Sure. As a child, I was always really overweight, and by the time I got to college, I was probably about 200 pounds. So I kind of took it upon myself to understand my eating behaviors, and digging deep into myself, I realized that it had a lot to do with not being aware of my hunger, not knowing when I was hungry. I was raised around my father, who his eating habits were horrific, and he would just stuff his face mindlessly and eat as much. He would just stuff his face with as much food as he could possibly get his hands on, and then he would exercise maniacally. So I grew up kind of watching how he was eating, and I just kind of I feel like I have a good understanding of the importance of being a mindful eater, and I know that the importance of a parent's role in a child's life when it comes to learning how to be a mindful eater.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. And it reminds me of myself a little bit in that sometimes I'm stuffing my face with the chocolate chip cookies at night, and then I'm running the next morning around the New York Reservoir.
Yeah.
And, what can I say? I'm not above it all. Let's talk a little bit about what you mean by mindful eating. What does that mean to you?
Being a mindful eater just means paying attention to your internal cues, feeling your stomach, actually feeling hunger, and your body naturally knows what nutrients that it needs, and you'll feel a physiological craving for certain foods based on what it needs at that time. So just paying attention to your body 100% and feeling it and recognizing the sensations that your body has.
Right. Okay. So for a parent trying to instill that type of sensory awareness of their bodies in their children, there are probably some things that maybe they should steer away from. And I know that you had talked to me a little bit about this. For instance, should a parent use food as an opportunity to trick a child into doing something else? Or,
right.
For instance, to put it more clearly, is it okay to say, I'll give you that big Snickers bar if you eat your spinach?
Right. Essentially what you want to be teaching your children is that food is meant just for eating, just for nourishing yourself. So you don't want to use food as a way to kind of control or manipulate your child. You want to give them a chance to be hungry and give them the opportunity to say, look, I'm hungry, I want something to eat. And the best thing you could do is offer them expose them to a variety of healthy and nutritious foods, and so they can make good choices. You give them the opportunity to make good choices, but you really you just want to make food about eating and enjoying it. You don't want to use it as a bribe. You don't want to use it as a reward. You don't want to take it away, for a punishment. It's just there to keep us healthy, and it's there to be enjoyed.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with that. Now, one of the things also that you touched on when we were talking about this is the idea that dinner time or mealtime can be a nice ritual for the family. And so many busy parents and their children will sit around the TV. One person, grabs something to eat, then the next person's eating 10 minutes later, and it's kind of like the sun is sort of where the TV is, and everybody's orbiting around the TV, and that is not necessarily such a good thing in terms of developing a ritual. So why do you feel that the importance of the dinner time ritual has value?
Well, if you're eating in front of the TV, I mean, how many people just sit in front of the TV with a bag of potato chips and they're just mindlessly putting food in their mouth? You're not even paying attention to what you're eating. So you want eating to be an experience. So, and you also want to have your body on a schedule, so you're not just grazing throughout the day. Your body gets used to having 3 meals a day and 2 to 3 snacks per day. And that's really all that it needs. You don't need to be grazing and picking mindlessly on food. And what happens when you're mindlessly eating is that you eat food that your body doesn't necessarily need. So if you're sitting down, you're enjoying a meal, you're talking with your family, you're just enjoying a meal together, it really makes it a meaningful experience. And you're doing good things for your body, and you're just enjoying your time, your meal with your family. So it's good on many different levels, or a couple of different levels.
Right. So what I gather from what you're talking about is that it all comes down to awareness. You're saying if you're zoning out in front of the TV and you're just eating the chips, and it might feel good in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's not doing your body a service. And if your kid is, watching SpongeBob or something and is just asking for more chips or cheddar bunnies or whatever,
just for the sake of
munching, that's an unhealthy practice. Right.
Yeah. And I have a friend of mine she has great eating habits, and sometimes I just watch her in amazement, because she'll have an ice cream sundae, which is fine to have. It's fine to have, but she will eat a little bit of it. And when she's not hungry or she doesn't want any more of it, she'll stop. She knows she's one of those people who's very in tune to their body, and they don't eat more than they need. So I think at a young age, you want to help your children learn that sort of body awareness.
Right. What do you think constitutes a well-balanced meal?
When it comes to having a well-balanced meal, I tell people not to obsess. It's not something that I try to obsess over, because you really can drive yourself crazy. But when you think about a well-balanced meal, you could use your best judgment and try to incorporate a little bit of protein in every meal. Make sure that you have a fruit or a vegetable at every meal. And my biggest pet peeve when it comes to a balanced meal, or lack of a balanced meal, is you don't need more than 1 serving of a carbohydrate in any meal. So, for example, if you're packing lunch for your child and you're making a sandwich for your child, and the sandwich has 2 pieces of bread, you really don't need to give them crackers or pretzels or some sort of chips to go along with the sandwich. You already have your one serving. You don't have to go overboard with a million different snacks. Just make sure that you have your protein, you have your fiber, and then a little bit of starch, and that's all you need.
Right. And do you suggest making the dessert part of the mealtime?
Dessert can be part of the mealtime. My theory on dessert is that no food is forbidden. No food is forbidden as long as it's in moderation. So if your child enjoys having a little Hershey Kiss or something small after their lunch or after their dinner, that's fine. And I would recommend 2 small sugary snacks, but just as long as it's in moderation. You're not going to have 2 ice cream sundaes, one after lunch and one after dinner. But just making sure that it's small and it's in moderation, and it's okay. You don't want to make any foods off limits.
Right. Yeah. I think that's good advice. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. So one last question, which I think would be interesting, is how do you deal with a kid who's a picky eater? Let's say you put the a nice meal in front of a child, what you think is a nice meal, and they're like, they just don't want anything to do with it.
All the time.
And it might be because they don't like the sauce, or they don't like the vegetables, or like for instance, our son hates it when we put when we mix the spinach on the same plate with the mac and cheese. Right. It's like he wants them like they can be on separate plates, but do not have them on the same plate, or I will not eat it. So how do you deal with that type of situation?
Picky eaters, I know it's. I feel like this is the biggest challenge for some parents. My recommendation, my main suggestion is you have to stand your ground. These, if you're cooking dinner, you want to make sure that you have at least 2 foods that you know that they'll enjoy. And if you have them be a part of choosing a new food that they say that they're willing to try, and encourage them to have one bite of it, try one bite, but don't make it this treacherous battle. If they don't want to eat it, if they don't want to eat the whole thing, that's fine, not a big deal. You'll try again next time. But what's important to keep in mind is that it really takes 8 to 12 tries before an adult or a child's palate learns to enjoy new food. So even if they say they don't like it, try again. And another biggie is that if you have cauliflower, for example, as your new food for your child to try, and they don't want it and they're throwing a fit, the biggest, am I rambling?
No, I'm just laughing because I'm the pickiest eater ever.
Oh, sorry. I was a little distracted by that. You're like, no.
It's like I would throw up.
You're relating.
Okay. Sorry.
Cauliflower.
So if cauliflower is the new food that your child says they're willing to try, and they see it and they're screaming and they don't want it and they're throwing a tantrum and they want mashed potatoes, do not give in and do not give them the mashed potatoes, because essentially what you're teaching them is if they scream and cry and throw a fit, they'll get what they want. So if they don't want to eat it, they don't have to eat it. And if that means that they're going to be a little hungry before bed, then they're going to be a little hungry. But their body will know. Their body will compensate for the lack of food that they had at dinner time, and they'll end up eating more for breakfast. So don't worry that you're going to be starving your children. They will make up for it at the next meal, and they'll be fine. So you really just have to stand your ground, and no wiggle room, no accommodating their tantrums.
Yeah.
Tantruming behaviors.
Well, I agree. And sometimes I'll say as a parent, and I'm sure that you guys can relate out there, sometimes it's very difficult to stand your ground when you're tired yourself, and
it is.
It's
and
a long day, and
crying.
the kids screaming. It's just like, you know what? Yeah, fine. Have another Sunday, because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. So
don't do that.
But I agree that if you do that with any constancy,
right.
You dig a hole for yourself, because you disempower yourself, and your kid won't take what you say seriously. When you stand your ground, when mommy or daddy says this is the way that it is and you're serious, you have to stick to your guns.
Right, exactly.
So, and it's hard to do as parents, but we have to remember as parents, above all, we're teaching your child how to develop and grow in a positive manner. We're not their best friends. We're there to empower their experience and facilitate their experience of personal growth.
Right.
So that's an important thing to remember, and it's not always easy,
mm-hmm.
especially because parents get tired too.
Right.
But
in the long run.
But as long as we can try to keep those patterns healthy, it will benefit us and the child, most importantly the child, in the long run. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being here today and shedding some light on good eating habits. I respect why you're so passionate about it. And I think that comes across well, and that people will really get a lot out of this episode.
Great. I hope
where
so.
can people find out more about eating in general? Are there some resources that you can talk about, or do you want to just talk about what website the school has that maybe people can look at?
If you have any more questions, you could always contact Columbus Preschool, which is where I'm currently working. Or can I give my personal address? Is that
sure
allowed?
Sure.
If you have any questions or have any other curiosities, you could contact me at my email address, which is Amanda Masi, MASI, 1 @hotmail.com.
Well, it's very generous of you to offer that support to parents out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Amanda, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Harold.